The Galactic Council ruled the known universe for over 10,000 years. 12 advanced species made up this council. They kept peace through strict rules, especially about bringing new species into their group. When they found Earth and humans, many council members became worried. Eric Miller worked as a repair technician on the International Space Station. His job was simple: fix equipment and keep systems running. He had no idea his ordinary life was about to change forever. It was during the night cycle when everyone else was asleep. Eric was finishing repairs on an oxygen filter when a large flash of light appeared outside the station window. He looked up and saw something impossible. A massive ship, larger than any human vessel, had just appeared near the moon. "What in the world is that?" Eric whispered to himself. He floated to the window for a better look. The ship was smooth and silver, with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. The communication panel near his workstation suddenly lit up with an incoming signal. Eric checked the schedule. Ground control was offline due to a solar storm that was disrupting communications. No one else was awake. He was completely alone with whatever this was. "This is definitely not in my job description," Eric muttered as he pushed himself toward the communications panel. His heart beat faster as he considered what to do. If this was really happening, if these were actually aliens, someone needed to respond. With a deep breath, he accepted the transmission. The screen filled with light, then showed a creature unlike anything Eric had ever seen. It had blue skin that seemed to shine like crystal. Multiple eyes blinked at him from a face that looked almost puzzled. "Greetings, representative of Earth," the creature said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Xoral of the Azurian Confederation, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council." Eric swallowed hard. "Hi, I'm Eric Miller. I'm just a maintenance technician." He gestured to the patch on his jumpsuit. "I'm not really qualified to be talking to you." The alien's eyes blinked in sequence, showing what might have been surprise. "Our scans indicated your station was operated by a planetary government. Are you not the designated diplomatic contact?" "No, definitely not," Eric said. "Everyone else is asleep. Ground control is offline because of a solar storm. I'm basically just the night shift repair guy." The alien was quiet for a moment. "Interesting. Our protocols require contact with governmental authorities before integration assessment can begin. However, your species shows unusual mental patterns. Perhaps direct civilian assessment would provide more authentic results." "Assessment? Integration?" Eric asked. "Look, I should really wake up the commander. This is way above my clearance level." "Your honesty is refreshing," the alien said. "Most species present their most politically skilled members for first contact, hiding their true nature behind careful words." Before Eric could respond, a strange tingling sensation spread through his body. The blue light surrounded him, and he felt himself becoming lighter. "Wait, what's happening?" he asked, panic rising in his voice. "You have been selected for species assessment," the Azurian explained calmly. "The Council requires a representative to evaluate humanity's readiness for galactic citizenship." Eric tried to grab onto his workstation, but his hands passed right through it as the blue light intensified. "I need to call my supervisor. I'm not authorized for this." "Your candor suggests you may be exactly what we need," was the last thing Eric heard as the space station disappeared around him. The final transmission recorded from the International Space Station that night was Eric's voice saying, "Wait, I need to call my supervisor." By morning, when the rest of the crew woke up, Eric Miller was gone. The only evidence of what happened was a strange energy signature and a partial recording of a conversation with something not from Earth. Humanity's first contact had occurred, and their representative was a maintenance technician who never asked for the job. Eric opened his eyes to find himself in a room unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift colors slowly, and the air felt different, cleaner somehow, with a slight sweet smell. He was lying on something that felt like a bed but adjusted to his body perfectly. "The human is awake," said a voice. Eric sat up quickly and saw the blue crystalline being from the video screen. In person, the alien was taller than he expected, nearly 7 feet high with a slender body that seemed to shimmer as it moved. "Where am I?" Eric asked, his voice shaking slightly. "You are aboard the Galactic Council capital ship," the Azurian replied. "I am Ambassador Xoril. Your transport was successful, though your vital signs showed stress during the process." "Of course I was stressed," Eric said. "You took me without permission. I need to go back to the station right now. People will be looking for me." "That is not possible at this time," Sorrel said. "The Council is already gathering to meet Earth's representative. This is a great honor. Most species wait centuries for such an opportunity." Eric ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "But I'm not Earth's representative. I fix things on the space station. That's my job." The Azurian's head tilted slightly. "Your concern is noted, but circumstances require adaptation. Please follow me to the Council chamber." Seeing no better option, Eric followed the alien through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The ship was enormous, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadows above. Other aliens passed them, some with multiple limbs, others floating rather than walking, all giving Eric curious looks. Finally, they entered a massive round room. 12 large platforms formed a circle, and on each sat a different type of alien. Some looked almost like animals from Earth. One resembled a large rodent, another a reptile with colorful scales. Others were completely foreign. A swirling cloud of gas contained in a floating metal case, a being made of what looked like pure light. "The human representative has arrived," announced Horrell. All eyes, or what passed for eyes among the various species, turned to Eric. He became very aware of his wrinkled jumpsuit with the coffee stain on one sleeve. "This is highly unusual," said the gas cloud being, its voice coming from speakers on its container. "Protocol demands proper governmental selection of representatives, not random acquisition. High Counselor Vex, I must point out that our scans indicated this human was operating crucial life support systems." Thoril replied. "This suggests responsibility and technical aptitude." "I tried to tell them I'm not an ambassador," Eric said, addressing the entire room. "My name is Eric Miller. I maintain equipment on our space station. I'm not qualified to represent Earth." A strange sound filled the room, a mixture of clicks, hums, and whistles that Eric somehow knew was laughter. "The human displays honesty," said the reptilian alien, stepping forward. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Drell hegemony. Your candor is refreshing. Most new species send politicians who speak many words that mean nothing." The small rodent-like alien nodded. "Perhaps this accident is fortunate. A common citizen might provide clearer insight into humanity's true nature." "I just want to go home," Eric said simply. The gas cloud being, apparently named Vex, floated closer. "That is no longer possible. Council law is absolute. Once first contact occurs, the integration assessment must be completed. As the sole human representative, you must undergo the trials of sentience." "The what?" Eric asked. 12 tests that determine if a species is ready to join galactic society," explained the rodent-like counselor. "No individual has ever completed them alone. Species usually send teams of their best scientists, warriors, and diplomats." Eric looked around the room, suddenly understanding the seriousness of his situation. "And if I refuse?" "Then Earth remains isolated for another full galactic cycle, approximately 500 Earth years," Vex replied. "The Council does not revisit primitive worlds without proven potential." Eric realized that through a series of accidents, he had become humanity's only hope for joining the galactic community. The fate of his entire species now rested on his shoulders. "When do these trials start?" he asked quietly. "They already have," answered Ambassador Krell. "Your reaction to unexpected circumstances was the first test." Eric was given a small room to rest in after meeting the Council. The space was a plain cube with a bed, and what he guessed was a bathroom area. though the fixtures looked strange. A soft light came from the walls themselves, and the temperature stayed perfectly comfortable. "Your first formal trial begins in 6 hours," said a voice from nowhere. "I am Lore, your assigned interface." Eric jumped at the sudden sound. "Where are you?" "I am a linguistic operations and response entity," the voice explained. "I have no physical form. I will guide you through the trials and answer questions about council procedures." "Can you tell me more about these trials?" Eric asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "The trials of sentience test 12 different aspects of intelligence and civilization," Lore replied. "They normally evaluate a species as a whole, but your case is unique. The council has modified them for individual assessment." Eric sighed. "Great. No pressure." "Your first formal trial will be the challenge of innovation," Lore continued. "Participants typically demonstrate their species' technological creativity." "But I'm not an inventor," Eric protested. "I'm a maintenance technician." "That distinction may be meaningful to humans, but is irrelevant to the trial," Lore said. "All representatives must face the same challenges, regardless of their personal abilities." 6 hours later, a doorway appeared in Eric's wall. He followed a glowing path through the massive ship until he reached a large arena-like room. Tables were set up with various objects and materials, many of which he didn't recognize. The council members watched from elevated seats around the room. "Human Eric Miller," announced High Counselor Vex. "You will create something of value using these components. You have 2 hours." Eric walked around, examining the strange items. Some looked like tools, others like electronic parts. Nothing was familiar, but some principles seemed similar to things he worked with on the station. He picked up what appeared to be a filter membrane, similar to but more advanced than those he maintained in the space station's air systems. Another table had small energy cells that gave off a faint hum. A third held tubing made of a flexible metal-like material. While other species typically built weapons or communication devices for this trial, Eric simply combined the parts that made sense to him. He connected the energy cells to a small pump, attached the filter membrane in a new configuration, and used the tubing to create a closed system. When the time ended, Eric had built a compact air purification system. "Explain your creation," demanded a judge with shimmering skin. "It's an air filter," Eric said. "But it's more efficient than anything we have on Earth. It removes particles, bacteria, and even some gas pollutants, while using very little power." "Why this creation?" asked another judge, looking unimpressed. "Because everyone needs to breathe," Eric replied with a shrug. "Even on our space station, air quality affects everything. Mood, performance, health. I figured that's probably universal." The judges spoke in a language his translator couldn't process. Eric stood awkwardly, wondering if he had already failed. "The human demonstrates practical thinking rather than theoretical brilliance," noted one judge finally. "Interesting prioritization of basic needs over technological impressiveness." The next day brought the second trial, the challenge of ethics. Eric found himself in a simulation room, facing a scenario involving a cosmic disaster. Given control of rescue ships, he had to decide which planets to save when there wasn't enough time to reach them all. The simulation showed billions of lives at stake. Previous species had made calculations based on population numbers or technological value, but Eric refused to accept the scenario as presented. "We split the fleet," he insisted, adjusting the simulation controls. "And we send the rescue technology specifications to any advanced civilizations in the disaster path so they can build their own." "That option was not provided," stated the Drell examiner, Ambassador Krell. "Then I'm making it an option," Eric replied firmly. "No one should have to choose who lives and dies when there are alternatives." After each trial, Eric returned to his quarters exhausted while the council debated his performance. Unknown to him, the council was becoming divided over his approach to their challenges. Some found his solutions refreshingly direct. Others considered them dangerously unconventional. "The human refuses to accept parameters," argued one council member. This suggests their species might resist council authority, or it demonstrates adaptability we have forgotten, countered Ambassador Coral. When did we stop looking for better solutions? As Eric completed the third and fourth trials in the following days, the debate among council members grew more heated. Something unexpected was happening. The assessment of humanity had somehow become an examination of the council itself. As the fifth day of trials approached, Eric began to notice changes in how the ship's crew treated him. Some aliens would stop and stare as he passed. Others would whisper to each other after he walked by. The atmosphere felt tense. After finishing his meal in his quarters, Eric heard voices outside his door. He moved closer to listen. "The human represents an uncontrolled variable," said a voice Eric didn't recognize. "His solutions ignore established parameters. This suggests humanity might not respect council authority if granted membership, or it demonstrates adaptability and creative problem-solving," argued a familiar voice. Ambassador Coral. "Traits our council has existed without for too long." Eric stepped back from the door, thinking. This was about more than just testing humanity. Something bigger was happening. His sixth trial was scheduled for that afternoon. The challenge of knowledge. Eric was led to a small room containing only a chair with a strange helmet-like device hanging above it. "This will connect you to the Galactic Archives," explained Lore. "Most species use this opportunity to demonstrate their learning capacity. The Council expects you to study advanced technology." Eric sat in the chair, and the helmet lowered onto his head. Suddenly, his mind was flooded with information. Billions of files, records, and data streams became available to his thoughts. It was overwhelming. Most previous candidates had focused on weapons technology, energy systems, or biological sciences. Eric, however, made a different choice. He searched for council history and political structure. What he found disturbed him. The last 3 species granted council membership had slowly lost their unique cultures. They became more like the original council members over time. Species considered potentially disruptive were controlled through economic and social rules disguised as development assistance. When Eric emerged from the connection 2 hours later, his expression had changed. The Drell examiner, Ambassador Krell, noticed immediately. "You accessed historical political records rather than scientific knowledge," Krell observed. "An unusual choice. I wanted to understand who I'm dealing with," Eric replied simply. "Knowledge isn't just about how things work. It's about why people do what they do." That evening, Eric received an unexpected visitor. The small, rodent-like counselor entered his quarters when the door suddenly opened. "I am Ambassador Zik of the Pellerin Confederation," the small alien said quietly. "Your trials have caused significant disruption among the council. Is that good or bad?" Eric asked. "Both," Zik replied, whiskers twitching nervously. "Half the council believes humanity represents a refreshing change. The other half sees dangerous unpredictability." "Why tell me this?" "Because the council needs change, even if many members fear it," Zik explained. "Some of us have recognized our civilization's stagnation. Your species might provide the catalyst for necessary evolution." Before leaving, Zik handed Eric a small device. "These are access codes to council systems. Using them breaks numerous galactic laws." The small alien looked nervous but determined. "Use them wisely. The future of both our civilizations may depend on it." After Zik left, Eric examined the device. It looked like a simple crystal, but when he touched it, information flowed into his mind. Pathways into the Council's secure networks. That night, while the ship's cycle was set to darkness, Eric used the codes to explore restricted Council data. He discovered Earth wasn't randomly found. It had been watched for centuries. More troubling, human development had been subtly guided through small interventions, creating a species that could potentially serve Council needs while remaining controllable. "They've been manipulating us," Eric whispered to himself in the darkness of his room. "They're not looking for equals. They're looking for useful servants." The next morning, Eric prepared for his 7th trial, the challenge of command. As he walked the corridors toward the simulation chamber, his mind was filled with new knowledge and growing determination. Whatever the Council had planned for humanity, he now understood the real test wasn't about proving humans were worthy of joining the galactic community. It was about whether the community itself deserved to continue in its current form. The seventh trial, the Challenge of Command, took place in a large simulation chamber. Eric entered to find himself surrounded by holographic displays showing ships, planets, and star maps. The scenario is a conflict with an aggressive, unaligned species, explained a technician. You must protect Council space using the resources provided. Eric nodded, examining the controls. The simulation showed a fleet of ships approaching from a neighboring star system. According to the briefing data, this species had attacked 3 Council outposts without warning or communication. Previous candidates had typically responded with military tactics or diplomatic efforts. Eric did neither. Instead, he used his temporary command access to look deeper into the situation. Using Zik's codes, he secretly accessed communication channels not included in the simulation. "I want to speak directly with the approaching fleet," he told the confused technicians. "That is not part of the exercise," one replied. "It is now," Eric insisted, using his command authorization to override the protocols. A connection formed, and a strange being appeared on the main screen. It had 4 eyes and gray skin with red markings. The alien seemed surprised by the contact. "I am Eric Miller of Earth," he said simply. "I want to understand why you're attacking Council outposts." After a moment of silence, the alien responded in a harsh, clicking language that the translator converted. "Your question is strange. We were told the Council seeks to expand into our territory. We are defending our homes." Eric frowned. "Who told you this?" "Council operatives. They came 3 cycles ago, demanding resources and threatening military action if we refused." Eric used Zik's access codes to check restricted mission reports. What he found confirmed his suspicions. Council intelligence had deliberately provoked this species to create a controlled crisis for the test. When the trial ended, Eric stood before the Council to be evaluated. The chamber was tense. "The human has accessed classified systems," High Counselor Vex announced angrily. "This assessment is compromised." "Is it the assessment that's compromised, or your integrity?" Eric asked, surprising himself with his boldness. "You've been engineering conflicts to test responses. How many real wars have started because of these games?" Several Council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ambassador Kforel moved closer to Eric in what seemed like a protective gesture. "The human makes valid observations," said Ambassador Krell of the Drell hegemony. "Our methods deserve review." In the days that followed, something unprecedented happened. When Eric was scheduled for his 8th trial, 7 of the 12 Council races refused to participate, throwing the entire assessment process into chaos. Eric found himself at the center of the first major Council division in thousands of years. Ambassador Zik visited him openly this time. "You've accomplished what generations of reformers could not," Zik explained, seeming both nervous and excited. "The Council must now confront its own corruption." "This wasn't my intention," Eric protested. "I just wanted to complete the trials so Earth could join your civilization." "Perhaps your species has more to offer than we expected," Zik replied. "The question now is whether the Council will survive what you've revealed." On the 10th day since his arrival, Eric was summoned to an emergency Council session. The massive chamber was arranged differently. The traditional circle was broken, with representatives clustered in 2 distinct groups. High Counselor Vex floated at the front of one group, the traditionalists who believed in maintaining Council authority and methods unchanged. Ambassador Kforel, Krell, and Zik led the other faction, reformists who believed Eric's challenges had exposed problems that needed addressing. "The human has invalidated standard assessment," Vex announced. "Therefore, we shall implement the Omega Protocol. The human will face a single final challenge in place of the remaining trials." The reformist faction erupted in protest. Eric leaned toward Zik. "What's the Omega Protocol?" he whispered. Zick's small face showed clear distress. A direct neural interface with the Council's collective consciousness. Your mind will be exposed to the combined intelligence of all 12 founding species. And what happens then? Most theoretical models predict total neural collapse for a single entity, Zick admitted. No individual mind has ever survived contact with the collective consciousness. Despite the reformists' objections, the Council narrowly voted to approve the protocol. According to ancient Council law, Eric had no right to refuse. As technicians began preparing strange equipment in the center of the chamber, Eric realized the traditionalists had found a way to eliminate the problem he represented, while maintaining the appearance of following proper procedure. They had decided the simplest solution was to destroy his mind. Technicians worked quickly to prepare the neural interface in the center of the Council chamber. The device looked like a silver chair surrounded by 12 crystal pillars. Each pillar glowed with a different color, representing the consciousness of one of the founding Council species. "This is madness," Ambassador Floral protested. "No single mind can withstand the collective consciousness. You sentence the human to death without calling it execution. The law allows for the Omega Protocol when standard assessment is compromised." High Counselor Vex replied coldly. "The human will experience the truth of our civilization directly. If his mind cannot comprehend it, that only proves humanity's unreadiness." As Eric was led toward the device, Ambassador Krell approached him. "I regret this outcome," the reptilian being said quietly. "Know that your actions have already changed us, regardless of what happens next." Eric nodded, trying to hide his fear. "If I don't survive this, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them to be careful." Before being secured to the chair, Eric received one final visitor, Ambassador Kforl, who had first contacted him on the space station. "There is something you should know," the crystalline being whispered. "Our studies of humans revealed something that was kept from official Council records. Your species has remarkable neuroplasticity, beyond any we have encountered." "Meaning what?" Eric asked. "Your brains adapt to new information and situations faster than any known species," Thorl explained. "It may not be enough to save you, but it gives you a chance that no other being would have." Eric was strapped into the chair as Council members took positions in a ceremonial circle. The massive chamber fell silent as technicians activated the connection protocols. "Neural interface at 20%, announced the system. Eric felt a strange pressure in his mind, like a headache, but different. Images and sensations from alien worlds flooded his thoughts. Crystal cities beneath green oceans, gas giant planets where beings of pure energy danced through storms, ancient libraries carved into the cores of dead stars. Neural interface at 50%. The system continued. "Warning. Subject physiology showing unusual response patterns." The pressure grew, but instead of being crushed by it, Eric felt his mind stretching, reorganizing. He experienced the Council's formation thousands of years ago, its triumphs and failures, its gradual slide into rigid bureaucracy. "Interface at 75%, the system reported. "Warning. Unexpected neural activity in subject." Eric witnessed the Council's darkest secrets, species deemed too dangerous for contact, isolated forever. Civilizations guided into self-destruction because they developed along paths the Council disapproved of. The careful manipulation of developing worlds like Earth to create useful servant species. "Interface at 100%, the system announced. "Warning. Unexpected bidirectional connection established." The Council members gasped collectively. The interface, designed to be one-way, had somehow reversed. Not only was Eric experiencing the Council's collective mind, but they were experiencing his human perspective, his emotions, his moral framework, his human way of questioning authority. For beings that had existed for thousands of years under rigid thought structures, the experience was overwhelming. Some Council members collapsed. Others seemed to awaken from a long sleep. Eric felt himself changing too. His mind expanded beyond human limits, absorbing knowledge and perspective no human had ever possessed. But unlike the council members, whose consciousness had become static and unchanging over millennia, Eric's human adaptability allowed him to integrate the flood of information. When the interface finally deactivated, Eric fell to his knees, forever changed but not destroyed. The council chamber was in chaos. Several members lay unconscious. Others stared at Eric with new understanding in their alien eyes. Omega Protocol complete, the system announced. Assessment outcome: unprecedented. High Counselor Vex's gaseous form had dimmed significantly. Impossible, the counselor whispered. No single mind could survive the collective. Eric looked up, his eyes showing depths that hadn't been there before. I'm not the same person I was, he said quietly. But I'm still here. Ambassador Zik approached cautiously. What happened? The interface was supposed to be one way. I don't know, Eric replied. But I think your council just experienced something it never expected. What? Asked Krell. Humanity, Eric said simply. The days following the Omega Protocol were filled with confusion and change. The once orderly council fell into disorder as members struggled to process what they had experienced through the neural link with Eric. The experiment has failed, High Counselor Vex declared weakly, the gaseous form in the containment vessel noticeably dimmer than before. The subject survived, but has contaminated council consciousness with primitive thought patterns. Not primitive, corrected Ambassador Krell, whose reptilian eyes showed new depth. Different. I felt it. The human way of seeing the world. The way they question everything. Imagine things that do not exist yet, and feel so deeply. When did we lose these abilities? Eric remained in his quarters, recovering under medical supervision. His mind was overwhelmed with new knowledge, languages of extinct species, mathematics beyond human understanding, and memories of worlds that had died billions of years ago. Yet somehow, his sense of self remained intact. Visitors came constantly. Some council members sought understanding of the experience. Others seemed almost in awe of the transformation he had triggered. You must understand what has happened, Ambassador Zik explained during one visit. For thousands of years, our 12 species have operated under a form of collective consciousness, not complete mental fusion, but a shared framework of values and assumptions so deeply ingrained that no individual could question them. And now? Eric asked. Now that framework is broken, Zik replied, whiskers twitching with nervous energy. Your human mind, so comfortable with doubt, so accepting of uncertainty, has infected us with questions we never thought to ask. Throughout the massive councilship, the effects were visible. The perfect order that had existed for millennia was disrupted. Young members of all species began to adopt what they called human thinking, challenging traditions and openly questioning authority. Older, established powers resisted, warning of chaos. When Eric finally regained enough strength to appear before the full council 5 days later, he found a transformed chamber. The perfect circle of representatives had been abandoned. Members now clustered in fluid discussion groups. The formal protocols that had governed proceedings for thousands of years had given way to passionate debate. What have you done to us? Demanded Vex when Eric entered. I didn't do anything, Eric replied truthfully. I just showed you how humans think. You did the rest yourselves. The Azurian Ambassador Xorl approached. The Council must vote on Earth's status. However, we find ourselves unable to reach consensus, a first in 7,000 years of governance. Perhaps consensus isn't always the goal, Eric suggested. Sometimes the best ideas come from disagreement. This simple statement, obvious to any human, rippled through the council chamber like a revelation. Over the next week, Eric was asked to speak to various council groups. He explained human concepts that seemed revolutionary to them: the value of individual perspective, the importance of debate, the necessity of change. You've had peace for thousands of years, Eric acknowledged in one session. That's impressive. But at what cost? You stopped questioning, stopped changing, stopped growing. The traditionalist faction, led by High Counselor Vex, eventually withdrew from main council activities, retreating to their core systems to establish a separate governing structure. They viewed the changes as a form of contamination that threatened thousands of years of stability. The reformist faction, now a majority, began a complete review of council policies. The most controversial practices, manipulating developing species, engineering conflicts for testing purposes, forcing cultural conformity, were immediately suspended pending further evaluation. "We would never have seen our own flaws without you," Ambassador Krell told Eric during a private meeting. "It took an outside perspective, a human perspective." Eric shook his head. "I'm not special. I'm just a maintenance technician who asks questions when things don't make sense." "Perhaps that is what makes humans special," Krell replied. "Your species treats questions as more valuable than answers." 1 month after his accidental abduction from the International Space Station, Eric was told he would be returning to Earth, not alone, but with an official council delegation. The reformist faction had voted to offer Earth membership in a reorganized galactic community. "Not as subjects or junior partners," Sorrel explained, "but as equals, perhaps even as teachers." 6 months after Eric's accidental abduction from the International Space Station, a galactic council ship appeared in Earth orbit. Unlike the first visit, this time they followed proper protocol. They sent advance notice and requested a meeting with world leaders. Earth had been in chaos since Eric's disappearance. The partial recording of his conversation with an alien being had leaked to the public. Governments around the world had prepared for possible invasion. Scientists had worked frantically to improve weapons technology. Religious groups had declared the end times. When the council ship arrived, broadcasting messages of peace in all Earth languages, the fear turned to cautious hope. The council representatives who came to the United Nations building in New York included familiar faces: Ambassador Chloral of the Azurians, Ambassador Krell of the Drell, Zik of the Pellerin Confederation, and 5 others from the reformist faction. High Counselor Vex and the traditionalists were noticeably absent, having withdrawn to their core systems. Eric, who had returned to Earth 3 weeks earlier, sat quietly at the back of the General Assembly Hall. He looked different now. Thinner, with eyes that seemed older than his years. The neural interface had changed him in ways that Earth's doctors couldn't fully understand. "We come to offer Earth membership in a new galactic alliance," announced Ambassador Coral, now bearing the title of interim coordinator. "Not as subjects or junior partners, but as full participants in a reorganized galactic community." World leaders reacted with a mixture of hope, suspicion, and fear. When technical questions arose about the specifics of this new alliance, Sorrel gestured toward Eric. "Perhaps the human who helped create these changes should explain," the crystalline being suggested. All eyes turned to Eric. Reluctantly, he approached the podium. The maintenance technician who had never sought attention now addressed the representatives of every nation on Earth. "I didn't plan any of this," he began honestly. "I was just doing my job when they showed up. But I've seen their civilization, its amazing achievements, and its serious problems. They'd had peace for thousands of years, but at the cost of becoming stuck in their ways. They stopped questioning, stopped changing." He paused, looking at the alien delegation. "What they're offering isn't membership in an existing club. They're suggesting we build something new together. Something that keeps the good parts of their system, but adds what makes humans different. Our creativity, our questions, our willingness to challenge rules that don't make sense." The Secretary General approached the microphone. "Mr. Miller, are you suggesting that one maintenance technician has changed an entire galactic civilization?" Eric shook his head. "No, ma'am. I'm suggesting their civilization was ready for change but needed a push. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time." The negotiations that followed lasted months. Earth's nations argued, debated, and finally formed a unified approach to joining the galactic community. The terms they established were unlike anything in Council history. Earth would maintain its independence while joining the new alliance as an equal founding member rather than a junior partner. 1 year after first contact, as humanity prepared to send its first official representatives, To the new Galactic Alliance headquarters, Eric received a surprise offer. The Alliance leadership requested he serve as special advisor, the human perspective that had changed everything. "I'm still just a maintenance guy," he protested when the diplomatic delegation approached him. "I don't know anything about galactic politics." "That's exactly why we need you," explained the lead human negotiator. "We have plenty of politicians and diplomats. What we need is someone who sees problems and fixes them. Someone who asks the questions others don't think to ask." As the massive Alliance ship prepared for departure, Eric stood at the viewing window watching Earth grow smaller. He thought about the cosmic coincidence that had placed him alone on the station during first contact. One human, one council, one galactic mistake that had changed everything. "Where to now, Advisor Miller?" asked Ambassador Kforl, joining him at the window. Eric smiled slightly. "Forward, I guess, just like we humans always go." The ship accelerated into hyperspace, carrying humanity's unlikely ambassador toward a future no one could have predicted, least of all a maintenance technician who had simply answered an unexpected call.